Hey guys, what's up? Unrested back, finally pretty much settled into my new house. It's been a crazy month of just getting this place into shape and being able to settle in and have everything where I want it, where I need it, and just even understanding what I have in this house. I don't know if I explained earlier in my Where I've Been video. When I bought this house, it was a turnkey house. If you don't know what that means, it means you buy it with whatever's left in it. And so I had a lot to go through. There was tools in here, there was a bunch of furniture in here, there was, even things down to like cleaning supplies, forks and knives, which is great because I moved from Japan with nothing. And it's me and my son, so we need things like, beds to lie in and utensils to eat food with. So, but it still took some time for me to figure out where everything was, to get everything arranged in the order that I wanted in, and to, I guess, really just settle in, like I said. My wife just came down from Japan. She just headed back, a day ago, 2 days ago exactly. That was hard. That broke my heart because it's lovely to see her. It's lovely to see my older son, and it's incredibly hard to have to send them back and know I have to wait another 4 months before I go back to Japan to see them again. So that is one good thing. If you guys don't know, yes, I'll still be living half my life in Japan. Hence, I'm keeping this channel going because half my life still exists in Japan and half my life exists here in America now. It's rough. It's rough though. It's rough being halfway around the world from your family. But let's kind of get off of that. Let's get into talking about some Japan stuff to begin with, and actually covering some topics that, since I've been away, are kind of things I wanted to talk about with Japan. First of all, with Japan releasing that water back into the ocean. If you've watched NHK recently, they talk about this like nonstop, that all the leftover radiated water from when the Fukushima earthquake happened was released back into the ocean, and China apparently was ultra pissed off about this, super angry that they were doing this. The water had been filtered, it's been checked by multiple world organizations, and the actual radiation levels of it are far below what is considered dangerous whatsoever. I mean, it's pretty safe. It's lower than a lot of the water that exists around the coastlines of China, which is kind of ironic. China yelling at Japan about things being too toxic. I want to take a look in the mirror there. I think a lot of the times you'll see China get upset about anything they can with Japan because they like to take the fervor of being angry at another country rather than letting it build up in theirs. As you probably know, all sorts of economic problems are absolutely tearing China apart. It's going really bad for them right now, and I hope only the best for the Chinese people there. I know their real estate situation is pretty dire, and a lot of people still not moved into houses that haven't been fully finished, and real estate companies going bankrupt. It must be pretty rough. So I can understand where it might be more relaxing to look at the problems of another country rather than focus on your own. I think probably here in America, people do that quite a bit too. So China isn't alone in doing that. Next, I want to talk about the earthquake that just happened. I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask if my family was okay. Well, I mean, my family was here in America when that happened, but this one was pretty close. This was only an hour away, in Ishikawa, which I'm devastated to see that place so rocked by an earthquake, because it is a beautiful piece of country. It's a really nice, very fish market feel out there. I've visited probably 2 times now, and you get this really fisherman's life sense when you're out there. Like, you see all the boats and everything that go out to the ocean. You see fishermen walking around there all the time. There's open fish markets. The fish that you eat there is just so ultra fresh and delicious. It's such amazing food. I mean, you want to get the best sushi and sashimi, I feel like Ishikawa is some of the best I've ever had. So I'm kind of devastated to see everything so torn up there because it's such a beautiful little piece of countryside. People are super nice there. They got that old sort of country spirit there. It reminds me of like a Ghibli movie like Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro. It really gave me that kind of feel when I went out there. So I'm really sad to see that. This is the scary thing. This is what's so scary about keeping half your family in another country where earthquakes can always happen. Osaka's still really due for a heavy one, and this one just got closer. It's one of the reasons I purchased property out here in America, because we never know. We never really truly know, do we? What could happen? You know, the one thing that is always kind of strange to me is if I die or my wife dies, we do not have to continue to pay off our mortgage on our condo in Japan. That's kind of how insurance works out there. That's pretty common, that if one of the breadwinners for the family dies, then you don't have to keep paying it off. That's like written into a lot of the insurance plans you can get out there, even some of the mortgages and stuff like that. But if an earthquake happens and you completely lose your house, there's just no backup. Like, most people just lose everything. It's very rare that you would even buy earthquake insurance because it would be so outrageously expensive. So you just lose everything. And that's always scary to me. I hope it never happens. I hope I never do lose the wonderful little place I have out there. I can't wait to go back in 4 months and just enjoy relaxing on the couch, watching super busy Tennoji go absolutely nuts with the streets filled with tons of people, cars beeping and honking, sirens 24/7, ambulances blaring through there. I won't have to work a job while I'm there, so that'll be super nice, just relaxing for 2 months in beautiful Osaka. I love Osaka. I love how simple my life was there. Life was definitely more simple in Japan. You know, it's far more complicated here in the States. Next up, I wanted to talk about the JAL. Japan Airlines. I have it written here, JAL. That's usually what we call it in Japan too, the JAL. Japan Airlines had a major fire. They had a big plane just catch fire. And I read the story a couple times, and I'm still really confused how this happened. I mean, if someone in the comments understands this better, please explain it to me, because how does the plane touch down and also crash into a Coast Guard plane, but then also say that they never had visual of the plane and that's how they crashed into each other? So like they couldn't see the plane that they crashed into. I mean, maybe I can understand there's like some sort of blind spot for airplanes. I mean, they're massive, so you don't always know where that long body is. You've got giant wings that stretch out for quite some time, so maybe those can catch. But I mean, how do you completely lose visual on another plane headed your same direction? I don't understand how they did this, which I'm not blaming anybody, because I personally, I don't know enough about aeronautics and airplanes and all this stuff to realize how easy this could happen. Maybe this is like super easy for you to lose visual on another airplane on a runway when you're coming in for a landing. So, like I said, if you understand this better in the comments and be like, Scott, this happens all the time. This is pretty common that they need to be super careful. But I'd imagine there would be protocol if there are major blind spots that stop you from running into another plane coming in the opposite direction on the runway. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's far different than what I'm imagining, but for me, it just sounds like they touched down, and either this plane came out of nowhere or wasn't where it was supposed to be, and they crashed into it, or they weren't paying attention and somehow crashed into it. I don't know which one it is. I know it's being investigated right now, because it sounds like even the officials in charge of these situations are a bit confused on how this could happen. And honestly, I'm even more confused just because the Japanese in general are so tied to protocol. So if there is protocol that is in line that keeps you super safe from not running into another airline on the track, I would imagine Japanese people always following it, you know, hardcore 24/7 because they're all about rules. They love rules. They stick to rules. Rules keep them safe, is what I feel like, and they're great about doing that. So I'm shocked to hear maybe somebody didn't follow rules. And also the Coast Guard, I'm guessing, do they mean the Japanese Self-Defense Force? Because I keep reading through this article again and again, and it's not saying like, I don't know. I need to investigate it more. I need to hear more elaborated on. I feel like it's too much in its early stages as far as what exactly went down with this crash. I am happy to hear that all the passengers got out safely and that they were okay, but it's sad to hear that Coast Guard members died. I believe it was like five or six Coast Guard members died on the other airplane. That's sad to hear. You know, an in-air crash I can maybe understand because things are a little more hectic, but on the runway, Next up, oh, this is a big one. The Johnny's situation. I had been wanting to talk about this. This one was really picking at me while I was in transition mode between pretty much moving here to America and finally getting my own place so I could record videos. You know, one of the biggest problems, this is going off on a tangent for a second, but you guys know I love my tangents, so you don't mind. One of the biggest problems was I wanted to record videos as soon as I got here to kind of update everybody about how I had moved to America. You know, I had this giant 9-month gap where I didn't update any videos whatsoever. And I wanted to do it, but at the same time I was living at my parents' place, and it's a smaller place. You know, they're in their retirement phase, so they don't need a ton of land. They don't need a ton of stuff. You know, they don't want to be out there cutting grass 24/7 and baking outside in the Florida heat and paying for a bajillion dollars to air condition a giant mansion or something like that. So they're into a smaller place. So I was living out of one tiny bedroom with my son. So imagine this, my son and I living in probably a bedroom about as big as this room, sharing about a queen size bed. And, you know, my parents are like in a bedroom almost right next to us. And I love my mom and dad. They're awesome. I mean, they supported me through this whole move. They did everything they could to help me. You know, they're awesome. But it was rough because you're cramped up in that tiny space, and I couldn't record videos there because I felt kind of like, you know, right now it's 9 o'clock in the morning and my son is still sleeping, but I can go far enough away in my house that I own now where I can record and he's not going to hear my voice. But I would have woken up the whole house if I had just started recording these videos back at that place, because we were like literally right next door to each other with our bedrooms. So that's one thing that bugged me, and it bugged me because this whole Johnny's trial was going on at the same time, and I really wanted to make some comments on it. I was like, man, I really want to talk about this. This is crazy that this has happened. So if you don't, I should elaborate. I should explain what Johnnies are for those who have no clue what the heck I'm talking about. Johnnies are pretty much boy bands, okay? Excuse me. I'm still getting over a cough. Johnnies are boy bands in Japan. I'm sure you've seen a million of them. You know, SMAP is probably the most well-known one. Arashi, I don't know. I'm not a boy band fan, so forgive me for not knowing who the latest and greatest is. The two I just named there are like super old. But there's a million of them. They come out every day. Even my own son was recruited for one, but he turned it down. He was not interested. He went to an interview and was the worst behaved he had ever been because he just was not having it. And quite frankly, I'm super happy that he didn't, because oh my God, this Johnny's stuff that just happened. So Johnny's, okay, if you don't know why it's called Johnny's, why boy bands in Japan are called Johnny's, is because it was the nickname of the guy who started the very first boy band in Japan. His nickname was Johnny, and they were called Johnny's Band pretty much. So, and then it just got reduced down to like Johnny's. Okay, it's Johnny's Band. Okay, Johnny's. And now every boy band that worked for Johnny's was called a Johnny's. Okay. Does that make sense? Have I explained that clearly? I think so. And Johnny's itself is the company that incorporates and hires and creates all these boy bands. There's other smaller companies too, and those bands, even though they are boy bands, might still be called Johnnies, just like you might call every soda a Coke, even though it's not a Coke. If that makes sense. Like, you call a tissue a Kleenex because you're so used to that brand. Does that make sense how big the name of Johnnies was? That's a huge name. That became what boy bands were called. They were Johnnies. So the original Johnnies that started this, it was found out, and this is sadly post-death of the man who started these bands, that he had been SAing a lot of these boys when they were young. I hope you know what I mean when I use the abbreviation SAing. I mean that he took advantage of these young boys. You start the whole career as young as 5 sometimes. And yes, you're probably wondering, you're like, I've never seen any 5-year-old boy bands. Trust me, there's little tiny kid bands, and every 5 to 10 years, they re-enlist to keep training with this company. So for example, when my son was recruited, it was actually a guy at a mall saw my son, gave us his card, and then invited us to an interview and pretty much laid it out. And this is how I learned how this whole system works. He said pretty much from 5 to 10, your son will perform in a small boy band that we put together, and they'll, do silly little like kindergarten songs and stuff like that, and maybe perform for like, small school plays or, small school concerts or for little parties and stuff like that. They don't get big shows or anything like you see with these bigger bands. Then from 10 to 15, they can choose to re-enlist again. And this is when they'll start to like make small TV appearances, become kind of teen idols, start to perform maybe on very small concert stages, like as an opening band, or like the very first run of a band that comes up and introduces a bigger band and stuff like that. But still very small scale shows. We're talking like the tiniest venues you could ever imagine, like, outside of a mall where like once in a while 10 to 12 people stop to see like, who's this band and what are they doing? Like walking past these performers outside of a mall or something like that, or at a Matsuri, a festival. Nothing huge. And then once they go from 15 to 20, that's when they hit the big time. They do the huge shows. They're performing on large stages, and they have to re-enlist again. So apparently somewhere between the young ages of 5 to the 15 on up to the 20, this guy Johnny's, who was controlling these bands, was abusing these poor boys while they were in this, and they were being abused by him, and he was even bringing friends over to abuse them as well, and other members of the Johnny's staff who was okay with all of this were taking part in it too, and these boys suffered years of abuse. It's disgusting. And some of them, of course, are now facing huge criminal charges, which it'll break off and branch off into separate court cases and stuff like that. And of course, the Johnny's company itself has been forced to pay a ton of money to the victims. Johnny's, the guy who started the bands, he can't be arrested because he's already dead. These trials started long after he was dead, sadly. So he can't be punished. It's like a Jimmy Savile situation that happened in the UK, where they found out Savile was abusing all these young girls, and they didn't realize it until long after he was dead, and it was like a secret that was kept in the industry. Same thing. This was just a secret that was kept in the industry. A lot of people knew this was happening and they weren't saying anything. That's great that the victims are finally getting a bunch of money and everything for the abuse they suffered, but I doubt this helps them very much. Their lives have already been tortured and ruined. On top of it, NHK and many other, pretty much every big, well-known TV company is so disgusted by this, which is good. I'm really actually happy to see them not sweep this under the rug like Japan does a lot of the time. They've been so disgusted by this that they said they will no longer have anybody or any band on their TV shows. Like, they have all these variety shows where they'll have people from all different places in the entertainment industry, and they'll bring them on there to just ask all kinds of goofy questions. What's your favorite cake? What do you like to do on the weekend? It's like the most mundane, boring questions that you're like, oh my God, who cares? Like, but people love these shows in Japan. These are the big form of entertainment. Maybe they come on and they play some goofy games that the host tries to make up, or, you know, they have to tell a personal story about their most embarrassing moment in public or something like that. And now anybody associated with Johnny's will not be on any show in Japan, any variety show, any cooking show, any interview show, nothing at all. They've put their foot down. Every single channel, every single televised show in Japan has put their foot down and said, until you pay back every single victim that you created, and then on top of it, you dissolve the Johnny's company and start a new one, we're not going to deal with you at all. And I'm like, wow. That's crazy. Like, I've never seen so many people in Japan come together and be like, no, we will not tolerate this. This is disgusting, and we don't want to have any part of it. Especially with Johnny's, who is like, I mean, that would be the equivalent of almost being like, we heard something bad happen at Disney, and now we'll never have another Disney star on any TV show whatsoever at all, and we refuse to associate with Disney. Like, if a bunch of companies, you know, MSNBCs, you know, all ABC, CNN, like, I don't know, all these, if all these American channels just said, no, we will never ever deal with Disney, you'd be like, whoa, what did Disney do? Holy crap. Like, that's how big this is, that they've blacklisted everything Johnny's. That's insane. Like, that's hardcore. But good on them, you know, good on them for coming together and be like, no, we won't tolerate this. This is so disgusting. And, you know, great job. That made me really happy to hear. And it's the first time I've really see Japan come forward and be like, this is just too wretched and we refuse to deal with it. That's amazing. So good on Japan. Good move by them. You know, giant corporate televised shows coming together to do something actually good is kind of like mind-blowing. Like, wow. There is still some morals in the world. That's good to hear. I guess last but not least, a little about myself, what my situation is here. What I'm trying to do is get back into making videos for this channel and be a little more regular with it. I'd like to make a video a week for this channel, and this is just gonna be, as it always has been, me just talking to you like I'm sitting here with a friend talking. This is what I enjoy, man. This is cathartic. This is great. I like just sitting down and not having to have a script ready, just flipping the camera on and just talking into it and enjoying it, let you know what goes on in my life, what I've been thinking about with things going on in Japan, because I'm still heavily into it. Maybe even let you know, I'd like to do one about what manga I'm reading recently. Recently I read a bunch of great manga that I can recommend to you. Let me just throw some out there. And these, I've kind of gotten out of horror manga, which is kind of crazy for me. I've recently been reading a lot of slice of life and I guess like kind of cutesy romance ones where it's just kind of like, oh, this is a really endearing situation with these two characters. So one I read recently was Donuts Under a Crescent Moon. That's one I can highly recommend. And don't worry, if you're into like cutesy stuff, you're gonna like it. It's really good. The other one was Boys Run Riot. That one, it's not cutesy. It's a little more edgy. But it's about kind of fashion and stuff like that. A trans guy who's really into fashion. So it's kind of a really interesting take on the perspective of that character. I'd say that's pretty much what it is. It's like an analysis of how that character approaches both life, how people react to them and their choice in fashion. Very, very interesting. Not something I thought I would be very interested in reading about, but it's really good. I read this other one recently too, and I can't remember the name. It's about this giant girl. She's like a giant, like, I don't know what you'd call it, like a giant muscle, like behemoth of a girl. But she goes online and has a VTube personality that's like this cutie princess girl. And she does this because she doesn't like going out in public because people point at her and like, oh my God, what a giant. Which I can understand as having been on the taller side in Japan myself and being tattooed and everything. So I kind of empathize with this situation. I understand people who are just like kind of gigantic in Japan kind of always get, whoa, oh my gosh, you're huge, you know, dekai, say takai. And that's what this girl has to deal with all the time. I mean, the character is drawn beautifully. It looks amazing, but she's treated like a monster in this. But then she goes online and plays this cutie VTuber character, and people are like obsessed with this character, and they think probably she's like this in real life. But she's just like a slim, tiny, short, petite girl. And one of the people who's obsessed with this is this one Uber Eats guy who pretty much does his whole Uber Eats job to donate to her channel because he's obsessed with this VTuber. And one of the people who calls on him all the time is this giant girl who's always playing this VTuber. And he doesn't even realize it yet. And she's so afraid to go outside that she has like no outdoors communication skills. So one day when he's delivering the food, she says, hey, I'll pay you a bunch to just come sit down and eat my meal with me so I can get better at communicating with the outside world. And at first he's kind of hesitant, like, whoa, this is kind of weird. I've never had a customer ask me to come in. But he's like, you know, it'd be kind of screwed up if I just said no and didn't give this girl a chance if she's like really that desperate for, you know, sitting down and just having a meal and communicating with someone. So he says, oh, all right, fine, I'll do it. And he slowly like starts to enjoy his conversations and eating with her. But he is always kind of like, whoa, I mean, she is so gigantic, she's so huge. But he has no idea that the girl he's helping out is the same girl who plays this VTuber who he's obsessed with and donates all his money to. So it's a very, very interesting story. And God, I don't know what the title is, but if you find that one, I read it on Manga Decks. I believe it's just the webtoon, so it's not something you have to pay for. You just read it for free. So if you find that one, check it out and read it. It's so good. I love that one. Other than that, I guess a couple other manga recommendations. I did find a couple of horror series that I'm really into. If you are searching online for something new that's outside the realm of Junji Ito and all the other stuff everybody's read and recommended it a million times as far as horror manga is concerned, there's a series called The Red Book, The White Book, and The Black Book. And those are excellent. There's just small snippets of stories, not too small where you're just like, oh, this is a one-sentence horror story, boring. They're just long enough that they get the scares out and then you're like, okay, this is pretty good. So a bit longer than things like PTSD Radio or A Cause for Concern. It's longer than that, and the stories are a little better too. I don't know, PTSD Radio, that's another horror manga. If you haven't read it before, you can. But one thing I never really liked about it was the stories were so short that you'd like only have 2 pages and be like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, they already told me. All right, okay, I guess that's scary. Cool. Anyway, next story. Okay, let's finish it up. I guess just a couple shout outs before I finish. If you have time and you've ever enjoyed some of my art, like, you know, this is all my art in the background. I'm always still working on this stuff. And because I'm always working on this stuff, a friend and I he still lives in Japan now. We've actually worked together quite a few times. His name's Xenoglaive, I believe, online. He goes by Mike otherwise. I think he's okay with me saying his first name. I mean, he is my friend and I guess now kind of a business partner. We're working on incorporating this art and his art. He draws a lot of the same stuff that I do into all different types of stuff like rings, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. We just got hats in. That was pretty awesome. We mostly did it for ourselves. We're not really out there trying to be like, let's hawk merchandise. Yeah, we just like the Viking style stuff that we've kind of always worn and stuff. You know, I usually wear like sleeveless shirts. You've seen that before. I wear a lot of like darker colors. You know, I've always liked things like crows and stuff like that, or this dark sort of ritualistic black and white art. So because we like that stuff so much, we started making our own clothes for ourselves. And a couple Japanese friends out there saw it and were really into the Viking designs that we had. Like we had all different types of designs and stuff like that. We had like aliens and monsters and goofs, and they, for some reason, they really latched onto this, and they asked us to put it up on Shopify, and they bought a ton of that stuff, of the Viking stuff. So Mike and I were kind of like, wow, this is surprising. The Viking stuff that we created, like it's huge in Japan. Okay, cool, I guess. I didn't expect that. We just made it for ourselves because we've always been into like Norse mythology and the Yggdrasil and the life tree. And but because it did well enough, we thought, well, why don't we just make it for ourselves and anybody else who wants it, and threw it together on a website. You can check it out. It's ratingravens.com. You know, like I said, crows, ravens, blackbirds, anything that kind of looks like streaky and black and inky and noir, I'm into it. I love it. All my stuff back here, you can see like I have like a big kind of crow looking raven guy over here. And we started to throw some of these designs onto t-shirts and hoodies and stuff, and it's doing pretty decent. I'm kind of shocked how much these designs are doing. We got runes, we got these little tiny rings with runes on there. We've got these little necklaces with tiny hammers and stuff like that. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm wearing some of it right now, and I've got some in my closet, and it's some of my favorite things to wear. And if you want to check it out, if you're into any of that kind of stuff, or you've ever liked my art before, I don't know, give it a look. All right, ratingravens.com. I'll put it down in the comments below. And last but not least, I'm kind of taking a different direction with my other channel, Scott Inksmith. I'm getting into just turning it into a world building channel. I'm getting out of any of this talking about the downfall of YouTubers. It's something that's always interested me, but I feel like sometimes it just gets too negative. And as I'm getting older, I want to get farther and farther away from negative stuff, negative vibes, anything like that. I've realized over time, since I've been a teacher and an art teacher and pretty much always taught, I want to promote creativity. I want to promote creation more than kind of the destructive nature of being negative and talking about drama. So I've decided to turn that channel into one where I talk about my role-playing games that I play. And when I say role-playing games, I mean like tabletop role-playing games. I'm not going to be doing like video game reviews or anything like that. I think that's a saturated market. But, you know, my hobby is creating, like, you know, painting miniatures, drawing all these worlds. And you can see even over here, I got a big map of a world that I've created and stuff like that. That's all I do in my free time. So why am I not making a channel about that stuff? I play Dungeons and Dragons. I play Dungeon Crawl Classic. I still do role-playing games. I still dungeon master a game of DCC now. And even today, in about 3 more hours, I've got a game that I need to join for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So why am I not talking about my main hobby for a channel? You know, maybe it's not going to get a ton of views. It's not, you know, a super popular thing, as popular as talking about drama is, but I enjoy it, and I want to promote the creativity that it promotes as a hobby. And that's a little more fulfilling for me as I get up there in years. Seeing people create and helping them create is a much more positive vibe. So check that out. Go check out my other channel, Scott Inksmith, if you can, and you'll see my newest video on there is about why you should become a game master and how it can improve your life. If you could give that a, if you just like look at it for a call, like just a little bit, and then like leave a comment like, "Hi, Scott, I watched your becoming a gaming master video. Thank you. It really mean a lot to me." Okay. have I promoted myself too much? I'm not usually a big promoter type of person. I don't like to talk about promoting things too much, but these have been my two passions recently, working on designs for a clothing line that I enjoy wearing myself and my friends have enjoyed, and working on world building and role-playing games, and you know, talking to you guys here. This is the best. I love it. This is such a relaxing vibe. Like, it's pouring rain outside. I can't go out anywhere. I already got all my shopping done for groceries for the weekend, and I can just sit in this room that I have set up just for making YouTube videos and chat with you guys. It's super cozy, man. I love it. It feels great. I hope you all are well. I hope any of my friends back out in Japan are doing okay after the earthquake, and just good vibes all around, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you again real soon.